Yeah, I mean, it feels like a car where it's like it's really just not realistic to. I mean, outside of my case, like just never feels like the right decision to just buy brand new, and like it always seems like the better choice to just go use because you're gonna have to replace it anyways. And if you go used, like
Yeah,
I feel like you are definitely saving money. Like you're like the
oh,
depreciation side.
110%. Because like I've had my PC now for 12 years, and when I bought it, it was a used build. So if I can make my used build PCs last 10 years after only dropping a couple hundred, I will be okay. I don't need the shiny and new. I've never been like that type of guy. So like the car that I'm going to get will probably be used. PC will be used. I just I'm a cheapskate, Dave. I don't want to buy anything new. It's never worth it.
I mean, so I will make the one defense. Like I said, my situation was different when I bought mine and knew it was cheaper than used. But
Mm-hmm.
someone had previously said to me before I bought my car, they were like, "Yeah, everyone should buy a new car once in their life." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that." Then I did, and I was like, "Okay, it was super nice. Like the fact that like everything is. I mean, I had 8 miles on it when I got it, and everything
Yeah.
was like, this is mine, like
Mm-hmm.
well and fully mine, and like something about it is pure in kind of a some people's minds, I guess, a negative, but like it's purely my responsibility. You know what I mean? Like whereas like you can get a used car and be like, oh, there's some issues with it, but like it's kind of how it is. Like
Yeah.
I can basically either be responsible for it absolutely just like blowing out in 3 years, or it can last me 20 years. You know, it's a
Yeah.
taco. So even if I don't take care of it, it'll last me 15 years. But regardless, like I like that kind of like that full ownership of it,
Yeah.
like from beginning
I
to
mean,
end.
like once I own it, or like once I put money down, that's just my car now, or like that's just my PC. Um, like I treat it as my own, and any problems that it has, I assume the responsibility of uh, fixing it.
I actually did have I don't want to get into it just yet because it's like more of a heavy topic, I guess, related to
Okay.
that responsibility and the ownership thing. But
Mhm.
I'll just preface it's a rehashing of a previous conversation we've had. But
Like most of our conversations,
yeah, well, like every conversation.
we're
But this
never
time,
we're never doing anything new. We're just rehashing.
no no thoughts are ever original. But this time, I know we've said it before, and we had a
Okay.
podcast basically dedicated to it. But I've been having a lot of conversations uh with my buddies here, Dave and AJ, and you know whether it be about the topic, which I'll keep a little secret for now, or like
Mhm.
religion or things like that. Um, I've been having a lot of good, just like not confrontational uh discussions, but me and you, I think these days a lot of our discussions, I think me and you have pretty common ground. There's not many things that we disagree on, like
Yeah.
strongly, and even on the
Yeah.
disagreements, I think it's like more of the maybe the conclusion or like some of the finer details. Um,
Yeah.
but
But
this
when we
was
but we but when we disagree about something, it never typically like leads to a fight, or it doesn't like alter the way that I see you.
yeah. I mean, and not like just in a like argumentative way, but also like I think our viewpoints have converged so much in the past few
You
years
have
that
you have my viewpoints now.
yeah, honestly, it's not
Now
that
you're
our
doing to
viewpoints
me.
converged, it's that I turned into you. That's more accurate to say, I guess. Um, but I guess we'll save that for a little bit after. But
Mhm.
um, talking about before Luke's internet crashed, we were talking about Clair Obscure, how I've played it recently, and it's the best game I ever played. So quick little
Yeah.
catch up. Um, I will say though, a thought I had about that was like because I saw some other video basically talking about novel experiences and how when you're older, um, basically the video was talking about the morning dove or the morning bird or whatever it's called. Um, basically talking about how these things we used to notice as kids, right? Like these everything was novel to us, everything was we hadn't defined it by its purpose, we hadn't defined it by its definition, and
Mhm.
and that sense of like wonder has kind of gone away. Um, and like the example they threw out was like, oh, you used to see a tree and then you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna climb it and it's gonna be a little tree house, it's gonna be this. Now it's a tree. It's defined by its function and what it is, right? So
Mhm.
it kind of got me thinking about I connected to like Clair Obscur. I was like, oh, this is a great game. I've never played anything this innovative. It's the best game I've ever played. And I guess my thought was like, is this it? Is that the future? Is that every single experience from now on? It's like it's just gonna be more and more infrequent. Like, do you think that our experiences have to surpass what we had previously, or at least match and be novel for us to have that same level of excitement? Because I feel like it's kind of a bleak thought, right? Like it's kind of a bleak thought that like once you have a novel experience, it doesn't matter to you as much anymore. And I think that that is fair, but I don't know. That was kind
I
of the thought
think
that like,
I think a lot of experiences are determined by your interpretation of the experience. So I think when you're coming at it like, oh, I'm never going to play a game like that, or you're just waiting for the next game. Maybe you're just at a point now in your life where things just aren't as novel. And maybe like once you have like a new milestone, whatever that is, like a relationship or kids or just being in a different area, that same experience that you had might be interpreted differently by you. Kind of see
so
what I'm saying?
yeah. So you're thinking more. It's like they. It's not a one and done kind of deal. It's more like a
Yeah.
you just
So
have to
like,
keep moving, essentially.
yeah. So like, I remember going on walks, and I was thinking about this the other day. Where like, there's sometimes where I go on walks, and I'm just fascinated by like the trees and how close they are, and how like I listen to like the wind and like the rustling of the leaves, and like how I think about like how long the tree's been there, and I think about how many people have walked by the trees, and then I'll go back to that same park like a week later, a month later, go on the same walk, and have none of those same thoughts. I'll just be like thinking about like what I had going on in my life, and I'm still experiencing the same thing. I'm still experiencing the same route. I just have different things, and I might be a different person at the time. But like the concept of like being a different person is always weird because you're always you, and I think you just access a different mental state at certain points. So like I can play games. So like recently I've been playing a lot of GTA 5 again, just to like hit the nostalgia factor again. But I'm definitely playing the game differently this time around than I was before, where I'm like trying to 100% the game. Like I've never really tried to 100% any game, but I'm like trying to do it with this game because it provides a whole different, unique experience. I'm taking my time. I'm slowing down. I'm not just rushing through cutscenes. Um, and I think to bring it back, it's just more about like who you are at the time when you're having those experiences. Because if you played Clair Obscur back when you were younger, you probably would have like nostalgic feelings for it, but you probably wouldn't think it's the greatest game of all time.
That's fair. I guess having that comparative mindset is honestly, yeah, it might not be as depressing as I thought because, like you said, I have a deeper appreciation for it because I've grown and because I've had more experiences,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be in storytelling or music or things like that. But yeah, I think that's a good thought on it. Do you?
And like to kind of tie it back, it's like your greatest experience is just like whatever the moment that you're living in now, and you can't really fathom what the future is going to hold for you. And it just reminds me of like the people that like quote unquote like peak in high school. And like I know I had like a big concern about peaking in high school before I went off to college. And then once I finished college, I felt like I was going to peak in college in undergrad. And then I went to grad school, and then like I peaked again. Like I feel like your peaks and valleys are always changing, and it's you really don't know because you can only think about the past because you've lived it. You can only control the present, and the future is kind of unknown, so you can't really expect anything from that.
Yeah, I
You don't
guess
know
if
what you're
I'm
going to be. You're not going to know what you're thinking a day from now. You don't know what you're going to be like. What your mental mood's going to be a day, a week, a month, a year, 2 years, 10 years down the road.
Yeah, I guess to sum up, if I'm kind of putting correctly, how like I kind of see your point is that
Hmm.
instead of when I was coming at it from like a more of like a an absolute reference point, right? So like each of these experiences, if you could quantify it, you have to keep
Hmm.
surpassing that number that you'd quantify it, but everything is relative to the
Hmm.
person you are now. So yeah, I think that's a more optimistic spin on it, is that everything can be novel and like a good experience because
Yeah,
you're always
I mean,
changing.
yeah, and like even if you have the same experience multiple times, if you approach that experience from like a different mindset or a different point in your life where that experience may become nostalgic, um, you're having the same experience, but it's completely different. And it's interpreted differently. So I don't think like even if you play the best thing ever or you eat the best thing ever, outside of like maybe hard drugs, I feel like if you're doing cocaine and then you stop doing cocaine, you're probably not going to get that hit of dopamine to that. You're never going to spike it to that level ever again. And that's why that's like the unfortunate truth of like people that do hard drugs and abuse them and to get addicted. It's coming off of them. You've experienced the best thing ever. You've had the highest highs, and nothing that you do can replicate that.
You just made a positive thought into a very depressing one, talking about
Yeah,
drug addiction.
yeah.
Um,
It's unfortunate and it's true, and I've seen it before.
I had a question though, going off your this is not the main topic I wanted to bring up, but going off your stance on like, you're a different person every day,
Hmm.
and it changes how you interpret things. So is that I don't think we've actually ever really discussed this one.
Hmm.
The ship of Theseus, you know?
Okay, yeah.
So so okay, I guess we'll start from just the materialistic, like what is your interpretation of the ship of Theseus? Like basically from beginning to end, the ship of Theseus, replaces all its parts one by one,
Hmm.
all of the wood, and then and then eventually there no original parts remain. But I think the interesting part is when they bring up all of those old parts that were replaced are built into a new replica of the original ship of Theseus.
Hmm.
Which one is the ship of Theseus?
Um, I mean, the ship of Theseus is just a name. It when you were talking about that, it just reminds me of like human biology and like every 10 years all of your cells will duplicate and then kill off the older cells. And so you are not the same person that you were 10 years ago biologically. You're a
Right, but
different person.
right, but
Or
the
at
the
least
new you,
99% of you.
but the new you
What?
is you.
Yeah, the new you is you.
But so I thought of I haven't actually heard. I'm sure it's not an original thought, but going off
Yeah.
of people talking about reconstructing the original ship with the original parts. What if, let's say, you were to have an exact copy of you, right?
Mhm.
Let's you an exact copy of you, and then this will be a two-part question. So an exact copy of you, which one is you? Like
I would
it's
assume,
it's a clone, but raised to your current age with like the current experiences.
how long has the clone been around? Is it a clone that like was cloned at birth, or is it a clone that was developed
Let's
20 years
say
after birth?
it's just an exact replica of your every single atom in your body. All of a sudden appears next to you. So with all of
Okay.
your experiences, every thought you've ever had.
I feel like we'd both be the same, but I would be biased to believe that I'm the original, that I'm the real Luke.
But so yours is more from a consciousness standpoint, right? Like so because your stream of consciousness has been uninterrupted, that
Yeah.
you are more you than that you, even though it's everything you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. This also reminds me of I feel like I'm bouncing all over the place. This reminds me of like the what is it like? You can you can't prove anything that happened before last Thursday
Last
theory.
Thursdayism, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah. It reminds me of that completely, where it's just like you can't prove that all of your memories just aren't made up. And so, like, if an exact replica of me with all my same memories, they would think that they were around the entire time, but only I would know.
So do you think that you could lay any actual claim to you being more you
If
than,
it's an exact replica, outside of like me, Luke 1, seeing Luke 2 appear right next to me,
yeah.
I think outside of that, no. Okay, and that's an interesting question too. If it has all of the memories that I had before and we were the same person, would and I see Luke 2 appear, would Luke 2 also see me appear? Is that how that kind of works?
Yeah, like in Invincible when the Mauler twins, they always make it
Yeah,
so like
yeah,
they don't know who's the original.
yeah.
Essentially that. Like,
Hmm.
does anyone have more claim to, like, we know from the outside that you are the original, but neither
Hmm.
of you guys really are. Both of you guys believe that you are the original, I
Yeah.
guess.
So what's the question?
Is there any like is there any objective truth to saying that one of you guys is you?
Uh, Probably not.
I don't know. This is me just
That
just
is interesting. It's like, yeah, because um, no, I mean, like if they have all of my experiences and memories, and they think like me, talk like me, and yeah, you would never know who the real one is.
let's
And I would say like the original has the right to claim that they're the original, but I feel like you would get to a point where you're just like, I don't know if I'm the original. Did I just poof into existence? You're going off of your own conscious. You think you're the real one.
so okay, I'll take it
I
as
could,
I guess I'll
I
take it
could be
back.
Luke number two.
You could be Luke number two.
For
I
all,
could be Luke number
yeah,
one. Um,
you could be.
so now I'll pose one. I think that might solve the having two people with the same claim. Let's say like let's say teleportation. The theory is that if teleportation were to exist, it would be basically creating a replica of you, and then let's say teleportation for our thought experiment is it creates an exact replica of you and then destroys you as you are.
Yeah,
It
isn't that
completely
like a Rick? Isn't that like a Rick and Morty thing?
is it?
A thing that happens. I think so.
Oh, maybe. I think I saw it in some.
It's either Rick and Morty or The Simpsons or something like that.
I think
I remember very vividly like an airport scene where they're like um I think it's The Simpsons where like the airports don't exist or anymore, and it's basically just people walk through portals, they die, and they end up somewhere else. Like they just kill them.
so. At that point, is the new you that's been created you, or do you not exist anymore? Like, does the concept of Luke not exist anymore because the original?
I I feel like it still exists because it's um like you still think that you're you, and then everybody else around you still thinks that you're you. So you can still lay claim that that is the same person, even though
I
everything else has been destroyed,
yeah.
but
I guess
it's been recreated.
now I guess from a personal standpoint, if I were to know inherently, like if I watched you enter this machine and I watched
Yeah.
your original self be atomized after the new copy, I think I think I would lean to say that is no longer you, right? That is no longer
Okay.
the. But it's weird, right? Because like
But how are
it's
you watching me be atomized? What's the technique? Am I like being just torn to shreds and like I like flip inside out, or do I just like poof disappear and then poof reappear somewhere else?
no, like I see the new you pop up for a split second, and then I watch you
Yeah.
just like in agony be shredded.
I like the idea of like to be like recreated like in the style of like a 3D printer
Mm.
where it's just like I'm slowly like being built. I'm slowly being the original body's slowly being torn down and the new body's slowly being built back up. That visual's kind of funny in my
Can you
head.
imagine the absolute torment at the speed at which a 3D printer prints? The torment it would be to sit there for like what 18 hours as you're being rebuilt.
I would hope it would be a little bit faster, but I just like that dynamic of just like a little fast mechanical arm, just like going back and forth, just going crazy, building me back up.
So, yeah, I mean, in that case, though, I think I would no longer consider the new you you. But it does kind of conflict with, like the thing you posited, which is like biologically, every day we're shedding our old DNA and replicating
Yeah.
it. We're no, we're pretty. Like after what was it? Is it like 10 years or something? They're like, oh, no part of the original you remains, something like that. Like after a
I
certain number
think
of
it's
time.
I think it's like it's a number like that, but there are some cells that don't replicate like that, so it's hard to tell. Most of the tissue replicates like that, but then like your neural cells in your brain, they um, don't die off like that
Mm.
and recreate that fast.
They don't replace at all. Like those are what you have is what you got.
Just like it goes at a much slower rate than most cells
Mm.
if it does happen.
Hmm. Yeah, things to think about. I had no stance or no beliefs coming into this. I just wanted to see what you thought
Yeah,
on
I
kind of
think
the
you're the
stance and
same.
logic of
I,
this.
I think for like the practical purpose, you remain the same.
Well, an interesting.
If you want to jump down like a weird thought theory, I guess you could just have an existential crisis and just be like, "Am I the real me?"
I mean, it could be also like one, the last Thursdayism, or two, I was watching a video and it brought up this theory. It's like Boltzmann brain. I had to look it up because I couldn't remember
Hmm.
the name. But basically, it's this theory that, and this is just for fun. But like basically, it's a theory that in an infinite universe over an infinite amount of time, that all atoms would like rearrange to form anything, right? Like theoretically, right? So
Hmm.
basically, the Boltzmann brain theory is that in an infinite universe with an infinite amount of time, atoms should rearrange into like a functioning human brain, right? With um thoughts, experiences, memories, everything for like a fraction of a second. So the thought is that we could literally just be a brain all of a sudden created in an empty universe with all of these current experiences and what we're experiencing right now, and we're just living for less than a fraction of a second, just experiencing all of it and then disappearing. I have no questions or
That's
stances on this.
crazy.
This is literally just me
That
throwing out
sounds that just
that I've heard
sounds
that.
absurd. Yeah, that sounds absolutely absurd. It gives infinite monkeys and infinite typewriters type of vibe.
So I will say, I also in that video he brought up the infinite monkeys thing, and then it showed a little part. I guess someone tried to recreate that. Someone actually tried to
Yeah.
implement that, like at a small scale, and like the monkeys just like typed S like a few hundred times, and then just defecated on the computer. So the like I think that theory is I think that theory would be incorrect. That's my stance. After hearing that, I'm like, okay, yeah, I think if you did give an infinite amount of monkeys, an infinite amount of time, I don't think they would ever produce the writings of Shakespeare.
I think they could. Why not? It's an infinite number.
Yeah, but like, yeah, that's fair. I don't
It's
know.
it's an infinite number.
I mean, we're all just monkeys writing Shakespeare at the end of the day,
We
pooping
are.
out our
We are.
computers.
Even a monkey can type a masterpiece.
Do you have any
Is that
topics you want to talk
Fresca?
about?
Is that Fresca in a
It is
bottle? Oh,
sponsored by Fresca, not
no.
sponsored by
I don't think
Fresca. Not going in
I don't
trouble.
think I've ever seen Fresca in a bottle. I think I've only seen it in the can.
Yeah, I was carrying like a 12 pack of Coke Zero and a 12 pack of Fresca, and I was like, I don't have hands for another 12 pack, so I'm just gonna grab a 6 pack. So I've been back on the zero sugar soda grind for a while now, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's funny because people will bring up the thing like, oh, like at a certain amount of zero sugar soda, like it does start to have effects, like the artificial sweetener, and they're like, yeah, but no one drinks that much. I'm like, I think I might drink that much.
No, no, no. We're talking like 50 gallons of soda or something like that. How much? How much aspartame is dangerous?
I think they did say it was like the equivalent of drinking like 500 cans or something.
Uh, so it's 50 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So there's about 58 in a Coke Zero. So you would have to drink 100 cans, and that's the FDA's acceptable daily intake.
Mm. 100
So you
cans.
could realistically go above that. FDA is playing it safe.
I think a lot of things would kill you first before you drink 100 cans of Coke Zero. But
Yeah, you would die of overhydration.
yeah, your brain would just swell.
Your your cells would literally burst.
Mm.
You would die of too much liquid consumption while actively drinking a diuretic.
Would Would you rather? Would would you? Yeah. But yeah, I've been
what,
on the zero sugar soda grind. That's
what would I rather? Would I rather what?
Would you rather like die by like peeing out all of your body's liquids, like you don't die
Okay,
until every drop is exhumed, or your cells just explode from overhydration?
explode for sure.
But like you're alive for the same amount of time. Let's say it takes 30 minutes. Oh, 30 minutes to pee out every drop of liquid in your body.
Okay,
So in the other situation, your cells explode, and then you lay there for 30 minutes in the aftermath, conscious.
you're conscious.
Yeah,
Your brain cells aren't exploding either.
yeah. Your brain is the only thing that remains
The
intact.
yeah, the blood brain barrier is intact. um, hmm. How painful would that be?
Probably
I think
extremely painful.
for which
I
one, the exploding or the peeing out?
I think the peeing one would be like just a slow like I think that one would be like acutely painful. I think if every cell in your body were
Ooh.
to overflow, it would
And then
like
you're sitting there. Yeah, I think when you're peeing things out, I think you would just get to a point where you just start to feel like really really tired, and you're just like about ready to pass out, and you're just kind of uncomfortable for 30 minutes. While the other one, you're just kind of in agony.
just
All
pure
of your
agony
organs
for
just
30 minutes.
explode. All of your organs explode. But you might go into shock and might not feel anything. I'm gonna go with the
Here's
pee. I'm gonna go with the pee
yeah, I think I'd go
option.
for the pee. Here's a okay. One last stupid question because I keep thinking of them for before we move on.
No,
So
we don't have to move on. We can just stay
the
here all day.
okay, the worst. So let's say someone has like the worst day in human history, right?
Okay.
When do you think that would have happened? Like when and where would you guess like the worst day possibly in human experience happened?
The worst day in human
I mean, it would have to be like torture and like loss and grief and death, like beyond anything that anyone's experienced, right? Like it's pretty bad. It's a pretty high bar.
Yeah, yeah. When would it be? Uh,
You
do
you
you
think
want
maybe
like a
like
time?
Middle Ages?
Do you want like a time frame?
Yeah, or maybe like a time period like Middle Ages or maybe like ancient Egypt or things like I feel like Middle Ages are probably a contender with like the
Yeah,
torture devices that were created.
yeah.
But do you think how about this? Do you think it's happened in the past 200 years?
Uh, very realistic. That's so hard. It's such a hard question because it's just like what are like some of the worst things that could happen to you right now? You would like your entire family gets wiped out. You lose your home. You lose all your belongings. You have like a crippling disease that's super painful. You're slowly becoming like you have like parasites just eating away at your body. Uh,
You're
you're
tortured,
starting
tortured to death,
you're
basically.
tortured. You're tortured to death by little worms that are eating you from the inside out. Uh, what else? What else bad can happen to you? You ate a lot of salt and have no water. Uh,
Like I feel like that's why I feel like Middle Ages are probably a good contender, just because they had all the like all the tortures with like rats eating people alive, or like um the rat inside like the bowl and you heat it and it eats through people. I feel like those are like definitely contenders, but also like that was
mhm.
happening in like Rome too, you know, which that was like I don't know. That's my that's my question to you.
uh, Here. So like the thing that immediately comes to mind is like biblical. It's like the story of Job, the man that like lost his property, his children, he was in physical agony. He had this painful skin condition. All of his crops were burned down. All of his animals were killed. His family died. Like it would have to be like that level plus a little bit more. Uh, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go before the age of modern medicine for sure. So over 200 years. Let's just. It would probably be like 2,000 years ago. That's probably what I would go with.
Well,
When like the chance of just like everything being taken from you, family, belongings, house, and then also a high risk of contracting some sort of disease that nobody has no idea what to do, and they're just putting leeches on your body, actively sucking out your blood.
see, my contention would be like 1,000 to 1,500 AD, somewhere in between there, like Middle Ages,
Sure. Yeah.
because like one, you have all the Middle Age like torture, right? You've got like in London putting someone in a dungeon and having rats eat them for days on end, or and then
Yeah.
like you have got the Black Plague as well. So I feel like that'd
Yeah.
be my contention is that you've got the Black Plague, so their family being wiped out, and then also being eaten by rats. I feel
Yeah.
like
I feel like prolonged suffering without death might be worse.
yeah, because actually now that I think about it, if you die at the end of the day, like it might. I feel like I mean, unless you die at like midnight,
Yeah.
um, I feel like if you're still alive for the next day to suffer more, that I think that plays into the worst
Yeah.
suffering of the day.
Yeah. Or like to play like a psychological game on somebody where it's just like, let's say you're being eaten by rats, but then you eventually do kill all the rats, and then you're just like, okay, thank God, all the rats are dead. I'm not being eaten alive anymore. I can make through this. As they're slowly beginning to bleed out, they get infected with some sort of rat virus, and they're just like they were panicking, and then they started to feel better because the rats are dead. They're gonna make it through, and then they're like slowly coming down with like an infectious disease that's just eating away at their body. I think that little curve would be miserable, where you have like a little bit of hope and then it dies.
Just sinking them to the deepest pits of despair.
Yes.
Do you think like how about this? Like, do you think we can are we speaking from like a personal experience standpoint, like a their perception of it, right? So like you're saying, like obviously I think generally, pain tolerance aside, if every single person were to be eaten by rats, I think we'd all have around the same experience. Like this is terrible. But like,
Yeah.
do you think we'd have to take into account like their concept of like, oh, now I have an incurable disease that eats me alive? Like
Yeah.
how bad they think that is, or how far they've gone into the depths of despair? Do you think that
Yeah.
plays into the this is the worst day in all of human history?
Oh, absolutely.
Like personal experience, that definitely has a role, right?
Yeah. Or like somebody that's had you take somebody that's like super rich and has had like no issues ever, and then you just slowly like start off with like, oh, they wrecked their car. It's like you build like a story around them, so it's just like they've had no issues ever. They've lived a really comfortable life, and then it just starts off with like a minor inconvenience, like they stub their toe in the morning, and they're just like, damn, that sucks. And then they like with their stubbed toe, they like slightly get into like a small accident, and that small accident like dings up their car, and they're pissed from that. And then they find out that like their significant other has been like cheating on them. Dang, bad time. Your kids die. Bad time. And then it just like slowly trickle. It's just like a big giant snowball of things that just get worse and worse and worse.
I do agree. I think the fall from grace would be the
Yeah,
like the deciding factor. It'd have to be someone with because you can't grab like I think objectively, if you were to be like, oh, like a peasant in the Middle Ages got tortured to
yeah.
death and like all their family members died, like yeah, that's bad.
That
Like
peasant was probably like, thank God there's something else going on.
yeah, like almost out of boredom. But like it'd have to
Yeah,
be someone. It'd have to be someone at the top losing
yeah,
everything.
yeah. I think that might be the most painful way to go.
Maybe like the French
Like,
Revolution. You know, like them just grabbing these nobles and the
Yeah,
monarchy out of their palaces and then just
yeah,
torturing and executing them.
yeah. Or like is it which King Henry was it? King Henry the Eighth. That'd be pretty sad. He like he's a prince. He's a king. He gets into a fight with the Pope because he wants to divorce his wife. All he wants to do is have all he marries a girl and she keeps promising him that he's going to have a son and he never gets a son and she has like a bunch of like births but like a lot of the children die and then he he's like a very active guy. He's in fights. He's like athletic. He fights. He does like jousting tournaments and then during one jousting incident he gets like hurt, breaks his leg, gets like a really bad infection in his leg, and he's just miserable the entire time. But he's a king. He's the most powerful man in the world, and there's nothing that they can do for him. Modern medicine isn't around yet, and he just gets really fat, and then he dies at like 50.
I I feel like if you've lived to 50 though, like I don't know. I feel like the level of despair has to be like within your 20s. You know what I mean? Like if you're 50, like especially in that time, you're like, all right, I've
Yeah.
kind of lived more than I should have at this rate. There has to
Mm-hmm.
be some of that like coming to terms like I like obviously from the outside looking in, but I feel like it would have to be someone in like their prime and someone who like has life to live. This is getting really dark. Just so you know. By the way, like I can tell like as I'm saying this, I'm like this sounds really dark.
This is like a football player that tears his ACL before the Super Bowl.
And
Game
then
over. Top of the world. He's at the Super Bowl. Tears his ACL during the practice, during the warm up to the Super Bowl. That would be devastating. I
or
would
like or
cry.
like any MMA like title match where they get knocked out in the first 3 seconds, and like
Yeah.
that's the clip that plays for the rest of your life forever when they switch up your name.
Dude,
That's pretty
that would
bad.
suck so bad. That would suck. You just show up on best knockout ever, and it's just you just dying.
I I feel like hmm, that's always the crazy thing, right? Like I think people talk about humans being like pessimistic or like generally I think pessimism is the approach that we take. But also you think like people pursue these things like maybe it's just a hubris kind of thing, but people pursue these aspirations like, oh, I'm going to be the best fighter in the world. I'm going to be the the bantamweight champion or whatever of the UFC. And then like they don't really consider like, yeah, this could be my reputation could just be going like 0-4 and then like
hmm
having brain damage. Like that could be or maybe they do consider it and they just don't care. But
A lot of like fighting in particular comes from like a place of poverty. Um, so it's a way to earn a paycheck, I guess, and you're passionate to some degree, or you're just stuck in the endless cycle of like this is the career that you chose, and you have to constantly go get brain damage, but you also know that you're not good enough or ever will be good enough to like make any real money, but you're not skilled to do anything else. That would kind of suck. That's a Sisyphusian task right there.
just go in the ring, get punched out, go home, cup noodles.
Go home, have to go to the hospital. The money that you made fighting will pay for your hospital bill and nothing else.
Not even that. You have to pay off the debt by going into the ring again and getting punched out.
Yes. Uh, we're back. We did it. Operation Painful Day is over.
Did you have any little fun thoughts or any topics you wanted to discuss?
No, I never have fun thoughts. Uh, no, I've just been. I started a new job, my first career job, and that's been pretty exciting recently. Um, I haven't been paid yet. That comes soon, I hope.
Hasn't it been
But
2 weeks?
it has been 2 weeks, but I think they're doing like the weird company thing where it's like you don't actually make money until like the first month. They like backlog your paycheck. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'm just doing free labor again.
Yeah, maybe you're just not going
I'm
to get
just
paid.
used to it.
It's going to be
I'm
like
just
three
used to it
months
now.
in. It's going to be 3 months in, and they're going to be like, actually, we actually don't have money, and we're really hoping you just didn't say anything this whole time.
No, I know they're making money. I know this. I see how much I bill. They're making a lot of money off of me.
What's important is that you don't make money off of them.
Mm, it's working. No. Um. So I'm officially working, but I'm still poor. So I'm just waiting. Like I keep calculating how many hours I've worked, and I keep seeing how much money I theoretically will have sometime in the future. I'm just anxious.
I
I've
will
got
say
debts to pay, Dave.
it definitely doesn't. I didn't feel like I had spending money until probably like 4 or 5 months in to like making a
Hmm.
full salary. Because the first 3 months I was at OCS, like we make actually a, a somewhat okay, like decent chunk of money, like as an E5 or whatever. But like I was like, oh, like I checked my bank account. I'm like, oh, there's like $5,000 in here, and then they're like, by the way, that $3,500 worth of uniforms comes out of your pocket. I'm like, okay, there's
Mm.
all my money, and then like and then like the next month it was like, oh, a down payment for the place we're moving into, and then oh, a down payment for a car. So I had no money for like a while. So it does take a minute, but you'll get there.
Sigh, sigh. I think I'll get it much faster than you because I am just actively living with my parents for a while, at least a couple months. Um, so that'll be nice. I I can only live like a poor college student for so long, Dave.
I still live like a poor college student. I've been here for a month and a half now, almost 2 months, and like
Mhm.
last week was the first time I started hanging up my clothes in the closet. Like
Crazy,
I've been living out
crazy,
of my roller bag from deployment for like a full month and a half. But
crazy work.
we're growing up now. We're making
We're
progress.
we're getting there. My company decided to, or finally gave me some T-shirts, so I'm not just wearing whatever clothes that they gave me like a full, like 6-piece set of clothing to wear.
Oh, that's
So
not. Oh, so
that's pretty.
you get to just wear like normal t-shirt,
I'm
some
wearing I'm wearing
pants.
I'm wearing joggers and T-shirts most days.
That's nice. That's like
It's
def
really nice.
the thing I take for granted the most that I took for granted before I leave this command next month is that we wear a t-shirt, like a command t-shirt and black shorts. That's our
Hmm.
uniform. I've put on like the
Hmm.
actual Navy uniform less than 10 times in my 2 years here. So I I was like, next month I'm gonna have to get a haircut and I'm gonna have to learn how to put on a uniform again. Like this is
You're gonna
unacceptable.
you're gonna have to relearn how to salute properly.
What are we in the military? It's crazy.
Yes. No, you've had a cushy run, and it's over now, Dave. You get to leave on a sour note.
So, someone called me. Someone like it was me and my new boss. We were both standing there, and someone said, "Hey, sir, can I help you?" And I like turned around and looked at him, and she was like, "Oh no, I was talking to both you guys." I was like, "Oh, like I've never been called sir, like actually called sir."
Yeah, yeah,
So I'll
yeah.
get used to that.
Get used to it, Dave.
Oh,
You should start commanding it more often. Call me sir.
yeah. Actually, it's Doctor Lucian and Lieutenant Rao actually to you. So
No, when people use my doctor title in front of me, I get like really uncomfortable. I'm just like, please stop.
it that's the thing. Like that's I mean, obviously, I'm within a community that like doesn't have the formality, the rank thing. Like, there's no like
Mhm.
really like sirs and stuff like that. So obviously I haven't been accustomed to that. But even if I had been, I don't think I'd be used to like a title like doctor or lieutenant
Yeah,
or anything. Like it does make me uncomfortable because
yeah.
even though I feel like comfortable enough in my job where like I know what I'm doing now, like I still don't
Mhm.
feel like it. I don't think I'll ever feel like, oh, I earned this. I need you to like acknowledge that.
Yeah,
Like that acknowledgement is not something I need.
yeah. Yeah. I don't need the extra sayings. Just call me by my name. I'm here doing my job, just like everybody else.
Yeah,
We're
look
working.
at that. I don't think I'm better than anyone else. Oh, that's not true. I don't think I'm that much better than everyone else, no.
I want you to think that I'm better than you, but I don't want you to say it.
Yeah, yeah. It needs to be unspoken,
Because when you say it to me, it makes me uncomfortable.
and I blush a little bit. All right.
And
Are you ready then for our big topic? If you don't have
I
a
can be.
okay,
I can be
so
ready, Dave.
the conversation that we've been having a lot, and that I feel I've always felt strongly about. I think this is one stance that I haven't really changed in. It's not a political stance. I guess if you were to say anything, it'd be more of a philosophical. Yeah, it's definitely just a philosophical stance. Is the question of free will versus determinism. And I've been
Oh
having
no,
a
we're
lot of
back.
conversations.
we're,
We're
we're
back with
back.
because also it's been at least it's been probably what 6 years since we examined it.
Yeah.
And it's always been one of the larger. I think that was from my memory that was always like that was the biggest not argument that was the biggest disagreement we'd ever had on the podcast,
Yeah.
like as to our stances and viewpoints. And I'm curious if I think I've been doing a little bit of research. By research, I mean I've talked to ChatGPT um, about my stance, but I wanted
I remember you used to make fun of people that talk to ChatGPT.
I did used to make fun of people, and then it helped me, and I now see it as a digital little friend.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just post my like initial thoughts on it. I won't like get too in depth, but basically my stance was and still is generally that every effect has a cause, right? Like
Yeah.
every one of your motivations and your desires and your beliefs is caused by your upbringing, the people around you, the area you grew up in, and those
Hmm.
things were completely out of your control. And basically, you have been caused by the universe, and that's why I don't. Before I get into the caveats and like kind of how I've evolved a little bit, I'll let you get into your stance on whether you believe determinism or free will.
It's just a hard question because they both make sense. um, so yeah, like the idea of free will being that like you as an individual person can decide what you're going to do. And like I was joking about like free will the other day. I was hanging out with some friends and we were just talking about like, yeah, if we really wanted to, we could just go climb that tree right there. And it's like it's not socially acceptable. Nobody everybody would look around at us because we're like 25-year-old guys just like climbing a tree in public, but we totally could do it. We didn't, but we could have. And I tend to be more of a free will type person because like even though that everything has like a cause and effect, the effect can always be different or like what you choose to do is different. So like I have the free will to go do something that I wouldn't normally do that couldn't be like predicted by predictability models. Um, and I but it is hard because like I feel like they both can be true,
So
which
that's
is
kind of
weird.
where I've landed is like the in between,
Yeah.
right? Because so I will say I do still staunchly believe that if you could simulate every molecule in the universe, like let's say on Earth, we'll just say on Earth, if you
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
simulate
Yeah.
every molecule on Earth and plug it into a powerful enough computer, you would
Mhm.
be able to predict every single outcome and every single decision that someone makes, right? Because I think all of your motivate, like for example, you could say climbing that tree isn't something that I would feel inclined to do usually, or it doesn't really fit my motivations. But at that moment, some, by other factors, you being around certain people that want to climb that tree, or you being thinking it's haha funny, you'd be like,
Mhm.
okay, this is now the action I'm going to take. And I think that a model would predict that, right? And I think that like it comes from when I was discussing with Dave and AJ, they were talking about randomness, which also in itself, randomness is not something you control, right? But like even for the sake
Mhm.
of the argument that things are random, would you agree that if you flipped a coin or rolled a die, if you had every single factor of like the angle of the table, the angle of the die, the starting position, the velocity, that you could know 100% what that die was going to land on, if you had a computer like that a computer could calculate that?
Yeah. You probably could, but I feel like there's always going to be variables that are unaccounted for.
I guess this would be a hypothetical in which like you knew every variable. You knew wind
You know
speed, you
every
knew
variable.
friction coefficient, you knew every single thing that went into that action. Could you predict
Yeah.
the outcome? So like
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
That'd be my stance on human action, right? But like where I've kind of the reason why I've kind of I've been trying to find a little bit of middle ground. Um,
So here's the argument: because we're humans, humans have the emotional factor tied
right,
in with it, and that's something that can't be always accounted for.
but like where does that emotional factor come from? Where would you say? Let's say you think climbing
Hormones.
a tree is funny. Let's say you
Yeah.
think climbing a tree is funny. Why do
Yes.
you think that? Right, like let's trace that back.
It's funny because it's outside of the social norm that you would expect from 25-year-old people doing at like 9 p.m. on a Friday night to be doing sober, mind you.
I think the silver part helps. Yeah, that definitely does make it more funny. I I don't know, because in my mind I'm like, okay, all of those emotions and like that belief that it's funny because it defies social norms. That's because you know social norms, you know that defying them is funny because of like people you've been around, you've seen funny things, and like your
Yeah.
experience. I guess what I'm saying is your experiences define you, like, and they create you. Therefore, like, but you don't. I'm trying to find the middle ground because, like, yes, you influence your experiences, right?
Mhm.
You do exercise influence over your surroundings, the things that influence you, the people you hang around. But I think that all of those decisions, I don't want to say are made for you, right? Because
Yeah.
the problem I do have with determinism and like my stance, like it is a big problem. That's why I'm not 100% determinism anymore. I'm probably 80% because my issue is a good point that people have brought up, which is like if everything is determined, then everyone's absolved of personal responsibility, and you can't punish people for crimes, and like society falls apart. If like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
civilization falls apart if you believe that everyone is predestined to do an exact action. And while I do
Yeah.
think that you could determine that and you could predict it, I don't think I still do think there's a little bit of agency in there and like self responsibility, but I don't know exactly where it fits in with like the determinism side. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if the if the outcome is essentially already known, then you get rid of, like you said, all personal responsibility, which means that you. I'm just highlighting, I guess, what you said that you can't punish people or reward people for actions that they've done, and that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel human. That feels very robotic. I think where determinism like fails, like I was hinting at before, was the impact of like human emotion and just like people being different. If you, it works with like non-emotional creatures like pets and animals and plants, um, and but I don't. You still have a choice. You still have like the right, the free will to determine like right or wrong in making different decisions. That it's because it does become really tricky because it's almost like unrealistic to predict all known inputs and outputs that a person has come across. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I struggle with it because like where I have the hang up is like between good
Like
and
they almost
evil.
feel like they almost feel like two different arguments in a way.
You mean like they're polar opposites? Is that what you're saying? Or
Like I feel like I feel like they can coexist with each other. Like ironically.
I feel like they have to, right? Because neither of them, because like no one is truly in like free will is like is not logical. The reason why I've always leaned toward determinism was always like the logic side, right? That like every effect is a cause, everything is A then B.
Mm-hmm.
But like so I think that there's no logical like causation of free will, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you can't I don't think there's a which is also why I think it's been hard for me to like come to this realization because it's easy for me to discount the free will argument when I have the logical like A then B then C, right?
Yeah.
But there is like what got me thinking about it was like criminals, right? Like that's the big thing. Like
Sure.
does does my does my desire like am I predestined to speed? Like a very light offense. Well, is someone predestined to like commit murder, right? Or like kill a loved one or something like that? Like I think that while you could predict that, I don't think that I guess what I'm saying is while you can predict something because it is determined,
Mhm.
it's not you weren't forced into that. I think even though you are the cause of all these, you are the effect of all these causes, and you are created by the universe essentially. I do think there is a level of agency, and like I do think that people being evil or committing evil acts, like you are held accountable to those as your actions, which is like
Yeah,
it's hard to reconcile. That's kind of what like I'm getting at.
yeah,
I'm just a centrist. I'm just a centrist moderate, like all day, I guess. But like,
yeah. I feel like the older that we've gotten, the more that you can see like both sides, and then we get to the same conclusion. You're leaning more towards determinism. I'm leaning towards more free will, just because I think the human element plays like a big impact that can't be calculated because people vary so much from one to another, and they're because you can have. I feel like if you had two of the same people that had two of the same upbringings, and something happens to them exactly the same, their two outcomes may be different.
see, I believe the opposite of that, though. I believe that
Yeah,
that outcome is always determined. I believe that
yeah,
I believe that you're like specifically speaking, Luke's response to a
yeah,
stimulus, as you are, will always be the same, um, by the nature of who you are.
yeah.
Because people always bring up the
Maybe.
argument, like people always bring up yeah. I mean, like obviously this is guessing, but like
Yeah.
people always bring up the stance of like I was talking
What
with
if I had a
AJ.
What if I had a really bad dream the night before, and then other
Yeah,
Luke had a really good dream?
well then you'd be different Lukes. That's my
Ah,
argument. Is that at that point you'd be different Lukes, right? Like so so I
but
do
I'm
think,
still me. But I'm still me. You don't
but
become
that
a different person based off of
I
the
think
experiences that you've
I
had.
I disagree though. I think if there were a
Oh,
different you, and let's say that that Luke
so
was
so
a
let's take a Luke at that's was woke up sad one morning versus a Luke that woke up happy, and these could be like different days completely. Um, I'm still the same person. My mood doesn't change me as an individual.
yeah, but I think if you're saying that, let's say a Luke right now at this moment, a Luke
Yeah,
that's you, like you are however you're feeling right now, and then there's a Luke that's
yeah,
clinically depressed. You two
sure,
you two are separate entities at that rate. Like I don't consider you two the same person because if you've ever experienced something different than that other Luke,
yeah,
I think that inherently makes you different people, right? Like you are the sum of your
mm,
experiences is my contention. So,
mm,
but I do think, and we could get into this as our kind of lead in. Someone was asking me about like the multiverse theory, right? And they were like, "Oh, like well,
sure,
then you don't believe in the multiverse theory." I think that I actually do think there's merit in that, even if
mhm.
because um I think even if you're like, okay, well, you think that Luke will always make this decision regardless of the like basically Luke will always make this decision. But yes, but in a separate multiverse or a separate timeline, there may be a Luke
Mhm.
that bumped his toe this morning and then makes a different
He
decision
could,
because of that.
and then he couldn't use the brakes fast enough, and he hit somebody
Yeah, like
with his car.
that's a little more dark than I was thinking, but
Butterfly effect.
yeah, like that's kind of what I'm saying is like the only explanation for a different outcome is a different factor, like is a different cause, right? Like
Yeah.
if you'd have to have a something different, whether it be like literally a butterfly, like the
Mhm.
smallest of factors, but there would have to be some separate factor that caused that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being ignorant. I just like the idea that people have free will. That's where I'm at. I
I
like the thought process of like you can change your mind depending on how you're feeling or like how you've like controlled your mood and because I don't know there's just so much variability in all of it and between people where it makes like it makes it very interesting but it also I don't know if it does anything like if we found out that every So how would the world change if you found out that like free will didn't exist and it was all just determinism? Determinism.
I mean, like if it were to scientifically come down that like no one, the
No,
problem is like
no one is no longer responsible for their actions. Their actions are the way that they are. Because that's a fun theory too. Like, what do you do? The people that do good and the people that do bad, would they be treated differently than they are today?
hmm, I guess it would have to be like I guess it would have to be like those that are considered like clinically insane, right? Like the
Sure.
punishment, like they're you can't punish them or like try to like or imprison them or sentence them to electric chair or whatever. But
Yeah.
there is still some level of like, hey, there's a realism, right? Because on one hand, you can't punish them because let's say determinism is 100% true, which even I don't
Yeah.
agree with at my
Yeah.
point in development. But if it were 100% true, while you can't punish them, like or and I know jail isn't punishment, but it kind of is,
Depends. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Depends
not
which
supposed to be
jail.
punitive, but it kind of is. Um, so you can't, let's say, you can't put them to death.
Okay.
But at the same time, from a logical standpoint, even if you're like that person's actions were completely not their fault, you still can't have them be a part of society, right? So I do think you could still structure society in a way where like you can still be like, hey, you are now separate. You are now put
And
into this
then
group of people who have also done these things.
so you move them to a prison colony. You move them to Australia.
Yeah, we ship them off to
Okay.
Australia
Okay. And
because
then who gets to go to Australia? What crimes?
hmm, maybe you have different Australias. Maybe you have like maybe you have like maybe you have like hey like if you commit violent crimes you go straight to Australia. You go like to the
Okay.
outback.
And then like to what extent a violent crime?
So maybe we have
Murder.
like quadrants. Maybe we have like quadrants, right? So like
Okay.
quadrant one is murder, quadrant two is like armed robbery, quadrant three is
Okay.
like assaults and things like that. And then like maybe New Zealand is like white collar crime. And
Okay.
then like I do think like jokes aside, I do think you could still be like, hey, you're not culpable for your crimes because you
Yeah.
were born that way and you're the product of your environment, but we still can't allow you to be a part of this society with the people that aren't destined to commit crimes.
And then who determines? So like, let's say you have like you have the good society where like people that don't do anything wrong together. Who determines that? Who? How far do you go? How many colonies do you create?
So
Do you have somebody that?
we make a cat we make a caste system, and if
Okay.
and
Okay. Okay.
and it's off of
Your
your good
it's off
deeds.
of your social it's off of your social credit score.
Yeah, you have a social credit score, and you're like, okay, you've been done
You,
really good.
you are born with a social credit score that has already been determined and you cannot change it.
So
So from birth,
it's the caste system.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it is the caste system. So you just send them away to their colony at birth. You have you have two loving parents that have the perfect social credit score, and then they birth a child that has a very bad social credit score. Does their child get taken away from them at birth?
So it's like I mean, it's like it's like Total Recall, right? Like you've seen Total Recall, or you're familiar with the
No,
concept.
I've not enough to have a conversation.
I mean,
Give
just
me a
basic.
breakdown.
It's just basic like premise of it. It's Total Recall is there's three like precog or whatever. Like they can predict the future, right? Like they know the future, and
Okay.
they essentially prevent crimes, right? Like they can read the future. They'd be like, oh, this person's about to kill this guy, and then they send
Yeah.
a SWAT team or whatever, and they arrest him, and then he gets imprisoned for his future crime, right? And like the premise of the movie is that like, oh, actually, they're not super accurate because you can kind of change free will, right? I guess free
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
is the driving factor behind that premise, but
Yeah.
like. if you were to, while it's as flawed as the justice system with like kind of innocence proven guilty, like until you do the crime, I do
Hmm.
think from a societal standpoint, like if that's how it's structured, if you're like, hey, we can scan your head, we can scan your little barcode and know that
Hmm.
you're going to commit violent crimes, like not self-defense, you're just going to commit violent crimes. I do think you could be like, we need to, but then it also gets into the point of like, oh, are you committing violent crimes because we shipped you off to the violent crime quadrant of Australia, or would you have not committed those in the first place?
So that brings me back to the original question. You have a bad baby. You have a bad baby that is born. Do
A
you ship
bad
them off
baby.
early? Do you ship them off early, or do you ship them off later, before or after they commit, knowing that they're going to be doing something bad in the future?
I think you have until your 18th birthday. You have until your 18th birthday to change your social credit score, and
But
then
you
if it's
can't
like,
because it's been determined.
but see, I don't. You've broken determinism. You've broken me, Luke.
You can't. They're bad. They're bad. They may not be bad now. They may not be bad for 100 years. They may become a mass murderer at 101 years old.
I mean, but like in a society like this, we'd be making the assumption that if you make the assumption that you can determine someone's like crimes from birth because you
Yeah.
predicted every factor of their upbringing, every factor of their environment, then
Yeah.
you would also be able to predict like every if you have every factor, you can predict every outcome, right? So you know
Yeah.
exactly what's going to cause what's going to cause what.
Yes. So what you're kind of alluding to is you let them live in the normal society up until like the day before. But like if you move them before they do anything bad, then they
So
don't have the chance to do anything bad.
so what I'm saying is like I guess what I'm saying is if you I would agree. Okay, so actually you've gotten me to change one of my fundamental stances, which I hate about you. Um the
I just
the
I just I just play devil's advocate enough.
the the stance I've always had about like if you had every factor, you could predict everything, right?
Yeah.
And it would be like set in stone, predetermined. But if you can predict everything and you know every factor that causes everything, you can change those factors.
Yeah.
So inherently, there is a contradiction with predeterminism, right? Like or determinism or predestination, I guess is like the more religious side. But like
Mhm.
inherently, I guess there would be a contradiction because by knowing everything, you could change the future,
You
and
could change
therefore
it.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't know everything.
Yeah.
So
Well, I feel like you would just have like an unlimited reel of things that you could choose from.
so do
Multiverse
you
theory,
do you think there's
or
just like
it's free will. One of the two.
well, I don't want to say you're right, so I'm going to say the first one. So so do you think that there's like so this is me honestly asking like because I do
Yeah.
I I'd probably say I'm still like 60-40 determinism free will 70-30 60-40 like I still do
Yeah.
think like most things are the effect from a cause. But
Yeah.
do you think that the free will, do you think it's, I mean, I don't want to like force religion into it, but like, do you think it's like just an unknowable, like human element? It's like a soul or something. Like there's something that just truly can't be quantified that like that free will, I guess, is like,
Yeah. I mean, there's like I'm a spiritual person. I would say that there is an aspect to our mentality that cannot be explained. Um, and like the belief biblically is that you're born with free will. Um, but we've seen, and then you know inherently the difference between right and wrong. But like that's been kind of disproven by other cultures by seeing like their differences in right and wrong. So we know not to kill people, but if you kill somebody for like, and I'm thinking of like the Aztecs. If you kill somebody for the sake of a sacrifice, that is deemed good by that culture, but not deemed good by us today.
so an interesting thing about that, because I had always, until last week, literally a week ago, I had always been under the impression that the Christian belief was in free will. right? Like I was like, okay, like I might be contradicting like that a little bit. Then I talked to
Yeah.
someone, and also I after I talked to this person about it, I also heard a podcast with the Good Mythical Morning guy, Rhett,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and like he's deconstructed all this stuff. He's talking about like his previous religious beliefs, and the person I talked to was of the same belief, like the Southern Baptist belief,
Mhm.
right? Like a certain sect of Christianity, in which they believe in predestination. They believe that those who
Ooh.
are like. So I was shocked because I was like, I believe in determinism. Like I was talking to someone and I was like, um, she was like, "Oh, do you believe in free will determinism?" I was like, "Well, I know might be against like Christian belief, but I believe in determinism." She was like, "Actually, I believe in free will, and it's against my Christian belief." So it was interesting that like I had always thought I was contrary, but they believe like a certain sect of Christianity believes that um that those who are like from the religious side, that those who are determined to be saved are determined from the beginning because of cause and effect, where they're born, who they're destined to meet, who they're destined to be raised by, and
Yeah.
things like that.
That kind of goes against most Christianity sects. Most sects believe that you do have free will and
The
that
point is
you
free
have
will. Yeah.
the point is free will. Yeah. So that is different because like, how else are you going to be able to like come to Jesus if you don't have your come to Jesus moment?
So I had a question, and I'll see how you approach this. All right. So this might, I guess, warning for anyone who doesn't want to hear about just theism and religious arguments, but it has been
Mm-hmm.
something that we've been discussing a lot, right? Because my buddy Dave, he's been like recently found religion again, like he's been like
Mm-hmm.
really back into it, and we've been having these discussions because I've always been more of like a questioning, like logical side,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we were discussing like the concept of heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I basically made the stance that um well heaven's supposed to be this perfect place, right? And obviously
So
I'm not approaching you of like expecting you to be like a pastor,
yeah,
like you know, theologian
yeah.
or anything. Kind of just me throwing out ideas. So like the premise was that heaven's supposed to be like a perfect place, like there's no sorrow, anything like that.
Sure.
So the stance was that, okay, well, what if you have family members that don't go to heaven, like loved
Okay.
ones, or loved ones that don't go to heaven? How can
Mm-hmm.
that possibly be like a perfect place, right, without sadness?
Yeah. So I mean, heaven, I believe, is defined as being with the presence of God.
Hmm.
That is heaven, and outside of heaven, hell, or if you're a Catholic, it's
Purgatory.
purgatory. Yep. It's without God. So it's the lack of having God, whether in your heart or in your soul. Um, and like from a logical standpoint, yes, that makes sense because like I don't know, like the way that faith puts it is like you're supposed to. It's like it's your Almighty Father. It's God. Number one. It's like the Holy Trinity: God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, and then like everything else after that. And then you can rank that in whatever you want, but that's number one. And without that, you would have more sorrow anywhere else. And it's like it's supposed to be like the love of God um, brings you peace and brings you happiness outside of like what you've experienced on the earthly world. I think I
So
butchered that, but yeah.
I guess what I was leading up to, because this is all I guess the premise was
Mhm.
because Dave gave this in response, right? Is that like, oh, being like with God, you would like you would no
You would
longer
have
have
no
those sorrows. You wouldn't have
sorrows
that
or fears.
attachment.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my, I guess, counter was that like inherently as a person, one of my biggest drivers, or like one of what makes me me like the most,
Mhm.
is like my love for my family and like friends and things like that, right? Like people like I care
Mhm.
about, and that's like what I live for. That's like
Mhm.
that's my entire purpose for being alive in my mind. Um,
Yeah.
or like one of my
And
big purposes. So if I were to be brought to heaven and now I'm like, oh, actually those things don't matter to me anymore, like because I'm transformed. Because I was talking to David, and he's like, oh, you're transformed, and like those things no longer matter. Well, wouldn't that
mhm.
transformation kind of negate free will? Right? Like if you're being transformed into a version of you that like that doesn't have those previous beliefs that like you've developed,
Mhm.
wouldn't you no longer be you? And like wouldn't that kind of wouldn't that go contrary with the whole like your experience on Earth shaping you, or like being the purpose of your experience in the material world? That was kind of
Yeah.
my contention.
So like the argument that I would have, and this could be completely wrong. I'm just going to throw that out there. But like if you are a Christian, or like you believe in a higher power or like some faith, and your family and your loved ones don't believe the same thing that you do, the question is, do you love your family? To like, or do they not love you? Because if you love them and they loved you, but you loved this one thing and you wanted to spend forever with them and you wanted to be in heaven with them forever, you would want them to believe the same things that you do.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay, that's actually a really compelling spin on it. Because I've always like questioned these things, and like I know there are good answers like that out there, and like obviously
yeah,
people, but I've never heard that spin on it. That
yeah.
actually is a good way to put it.
So it's yeah, um, yeah. Because like if you truly love someone and you know that like after you die, there's going to be a place where you're going to be, and there's a place that your family's going to be, and they're going to be different. If you really, really, really love them and you want to be with them forever, you're going to do everything that you can to make sure that they end up in the same place as you. Selfishly, like you as an individual person, you selfishly want to be with them.
Mhm.
Let alone like the entire reason of wanting to be in heaven, but is to be close with God. But selfishly, you would want your family there.
Yeah. He, this is just a pure hypothetical, and I know we're basically just
Okay.
pure theism discussions now. But
Yeah.
um, do you think that like the concept of, I guess, the Hollywood concept, or the maybe the Catholic concept, or like however the modern concept of heaven and hell is, with like
Mm-hmm.
pearly gates, you're walking around, you recognize people even though their forms have changed, or hell, it's just fire and brimstone and all that. Like, do you think that? See, my belief would be that like those are completely inaccurate, right? Like I think that I like my stance would be, we know as far as you said, which is like one is with God and one isn't,
Yeah.
right? So like
Yeah.
whatever form that takes, it's probably not those two. I'd
Mm-hmm.
say like those two being the option. Like I feel like I would wager like those two are not the forms that those.
we're we're guessing, and everyone else that has written about it is also guessing, um, because no one's been there and lived to tell the story outside of like Jesus, who went to both, because like he went to hell first and then he went to heaven.
Is that how it went? I don't know. I'm not a
Yeah, so like yeah,
theologian.
like when Jesus died, he went to hell. Um, First, I can't remember the purpose. There was a purpose behind it, but I can't remember. But he was there, and then he was resurrected, and then when he was resurrected, his final destination was up in heaven. Then there's like theories on like why he went to hell. Maybe it was to, like save souls that never knew him, or never, um, or like future versions of people that never had the chance of like hearing his name. Um, I don't know. It's weird. You're kind of guessing. It's weird. The Bible's rather interesting because it is a text that's at this point thousands of years old, and it's been translated a bunch of different times. So you're just trying to go off of like vibes and feelings.
Yeah, I think my like gut instinct, and from like my thoughts, and obviously I haven't read it as much as I like should to understand and be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
But like my thought is that it is not a literal text, right? And I think that's not an uncommon, that's not a taboo thing to say, that like I think plenty of people believe it's not a literal text, right? That it's analogous, or it's parables, or I mean
Oh,
literally like by
wait,
definition
never
the
mind.
parables aren't literal. But
I lied. So the concept that Jesus went to hell after his death on the cross comes from the Apostles' Creed, which states he descended into hell. There are also a few scripture passages that, depending on how they're translated, describe that Jesus going to hell. What the answer? Uh, Jesus did not go to hell or the suffering side of Hades. He went to Abraham's side. or the blessed side of Hades. Jesus' suffering ended the moment he died. The payment for his sin was paid, and he then awaited for resurrection in his body and the return of the glory of his ascension. So never. Oh wait, so he did not go to hell. Jesus went to Hades. That's confusing. I'm confused. I'm
Hades
gonna read
is
more about
in
this.
the Greek god of death.
Yes,
Hmm. Is this like a
I'm
Percy
gonna read more
Jackson?
up on this. Well, and then like Hades was also like person slash place. Like
Oh yeah, right.
it's
That's
hard
right.
to determine which one's which. I don't know. I'm gonna look more into that. That's pretty cool. That's confusing. But what was your original question? Sorry, I got sidetracked.
No, no, I didn't have any really original. We're just exploring these thought concepts, and I guess I'm throwing out the big questions that I've always posed, and like just
Yeah.
because because like it's something that like I'm obviously not coming at it from like a disproving point, right? I think a lot of these questions I'd say are asked by people who like
Yeah.
would like to just know,
Hmm.
and it's just an exploratory. So I have one. This would probably be my one last final big question,
Hmm.
and it's one that has been posed by countless philosophers. It's one that's one of like I know people on the opposite side throw it out all the time. Is that the paradox of like God being all knowing, all good, and all powerful, right?
Hmm.
Like that's I think they even had what was it like Justice League? I think they even had Lex Luthor say it or something. But
Yeah.
like but that's kind of a big question, right? Like if suffering is one thing, right? Like saying suffering, like okay, it develops you as a person, things like that. But like suffering and then dying, or like for example, like a child conduct contracting some horrible disease and then dying. Like I think logically, or from a human standpoint, right? And obviously there's a sense that we don't know everything. From a human standpoint, that seems illogical that something that could be prevented by an all-powerful God but wasn't
Hmm.
would contradict with like the all good.
Yeah. I've never really had a good answer for this. Um, I mean, like arguments that I've heard is that suffering allows you to develop your character and to like further demonstrate God's glory and also like bring about like the greatest good. Which could be true for like an adult or somebody that like as a kid or like in the story of like Job, as we mentioned earlier, where like he had all of the worst things possibly happen to him, where his family was killed, he got a really bad skin condition, his crops were killed, his animals were killed, um, and like through his it was kind of like a game between like Satan and Jesus and God, and Satan was just like show me your most like um, religious man and like the one who like loves you the most, and I will like bring down like the greatest wickeds upon him, and he will like convert and no longer believe in you. And so it was like a little game, and then once that all happened to Job, no matter what happened to him, he remained faithful, and then God rewarded him in the end. So it's like a testing of your faith, I guess. But then there's so many examples now that you could throw out where what about the people that never had like the chance? What about like children with like congenital disorders that have a lot of suffering and their parents go through a lot of suffering? It seems somewhat meaningless, and I don't have the answer for that. I don't know. I haven't explored that thought enough.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, well, we can leave it
Yeah.
at that. But you did bring up another question, and I'm going to keep asking questions because this is just a straight
Okay.
theological
Oh,
debate now. Not debate,
yeah.
but question
Debate. Just
Q&A.
question asking. Yeah.
Um, so the concept of Satan, right? Like a
Okay.
fallen angel, and I don't know. I I know I know there's is stuff like in the scripture that speaks about the angels and that, but I know it's less talked about. But like in theory, as an all-powerful God, Satan
Hmm.
could just poof and disappear.
Okay.
right? So why is say like everything's always portrayed as like a battle between like God and Satan, right? Like it's like a battle between good and evil.
Yeah.
But like as an all-powerful God, there shouldn't be a battle, right? Like there wouldn't be a battle. It'd be a at most it'd be allowing Satan to exist to test humans. But like so it wouldn't so it'd be like by 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 intent or they're like purposefully
Hmm.
allowing Satan to do these things,
Hmm.
right? Or allowing Satan to exist in the first place.
I mean, the I think an argument that I'm thinking of is like if God is all knowing, all powerful, everything is the way he wants it to be. The world with its flaws must be exactly the way that God wants it. And the reason may be like what we were talking about earlier, like why is there suffering? And it could be like in a world with no suffering, how could you, I don't know, how could you be appreciative of the works of God if you have everything? It's like an analogy could be like the rich parents and like the rich kids. Like um they're not as appreciative of the things that their parents do for them because they've always had everything. Whereas if you come from like a poorer family, you're more aware of the things that your parents do for you because they know how much their parents are having to sacrifice to get them what they want or what they need.
So so I do think and like that is something that I'm fully on board with, right? Like I do think
Yeah.
that like suffering itself like so I will caveat because I've been watching some videos like honestly it was before we started this I was like listening to a podcast
Hmm.
and some like debates but like they uh, the concept of human suffering and the necessity of it I do agree with, right? Because like one of the stances that one of the it was a Christian there was like one of those Jubilee videos it was like 20 Christians versus one atheist, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
so one of the Christians brought up this point and like I do think it's a compelling point which is like you know like you said the rich parents and rich kids if you never have your child, if you want your child to be better and be like what you need them to go out in the world and experience things and grow and face adversity and things like that, right? So I think that there is a purpose to suffering, and I think that while yes, there were some terrible things that happen, children with congenital diseases, children that truly do just suffer and die, like those, I think while they're terrible, I can see that you know we don't know everything, and there may be some higher purpose that we just don't
Hmm.
understand. But one, I will say an interesting point that the atheist brought up, and I can't remember what his let me see if I can find his name. It's Alex O'Connor. He was a he brought up this point, which is like animal suffering, right? Like
Hmm.
because there's the argument that humans develop because um God wants humans to be more like Him. They want humans to experience you know the cruelty of the world and um be able to grow through that and face those adversities. But like non-human suffering, right? Like
Hmm.
the what would be the rationale for that? Like I think one of the examples was like an antelope getting its throat ripped out by a lion and then just lying there for 30 minutes suffering, right? Like that. And I think the atheist guy he brought up like an argument like, oh well, what if all animals were just created as herbivores? Like wouldn't that
Hmm.
alleviate that suffering, right?
Hmm.
So I guess that was a point I wanted to see what if you had any senses on of like not human suffering. I'm on board, right? I'm like I see the rationale. I see the necessity almost, but
Yeah.
like other suffering in the world, right? Like non-human.
Hmm.
It's still like God's creations, but not meant to be like in his image or like him.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of like what you just mentioned that not, they don't, animals don't have the capacity, yeah, because because people are made in the image of God, because we can think, we're rational, we can use our brains. Animals aren't made in the same image. I don't, yeah, I don't know. Like, is suffering just necessary? Is it just a part of life? Because it does feel like when I think of like animals just like out in the wilderness, I feel like a lot of times it's just like luck on whether and determining how much they have to suffer. Like luck on the animals' parts, right? So it's like depending on like where they're located, if they're like near a water source, or there are a lot of predators around. I don't know. Don't have the answer.
I mean, I guess a theory. This is completely me just throwing
Throw
stuff
it.
out now.
Let me see the theory.
A theory with that, like you said, the nature of things. It could just be like, I think even if, God is all powerful, I think there could still be like laws like of just reality
Yeah,
that are, we're bound by, or that he's
yeah,
bound by. So like suffering could be an innate suffering, and entropy and like the chaos of the universe could just be an innate like
yeah.
product of like
Or it could be.
consciousness.
I'm kind of thinking of like from God's perspective, like playing Sims, playing like a Sims game, where it's just like you create everything around you, but then you leave it up to the people. And like, yeah, you created them, you gave them rules to follow, and then give them the free will to do the things that he has like said to do, and that it's not really on him. He's letting his creation run amok, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I think I just need to. It is hard though, like
Mm-hmm.
the meshing of like free will and
Mm-hmm.
religion, right? Like the meshing, well, determinism, I guess, in religion, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how like people who believe in determinism and also like fully believe in it and also are Christian like reconcile that, because that would, so like sects like the Southern Baptists, or what,
Yeah,
like other people who believe in like the logical side. I feel like at that point it would be hard to justify being like, hey, these people were created just to go to hell,
yeah,
right? Like that would be a difficult argument. But
yeah. That'd be a very hard argument because then like what's the point? What's the point of like people evangelizing and like trying to convert other people if it's already somewhat been determined? What's the purpose of going through all this effort?
I I do think that I think like um I was talking to someone about the determinism side. I want to say it was AJ. I was talking to him about it, and he said it was like pretty in line with, I guess, Stoicism, which we brought up before. I still don't know enough about it to really speak on intelligently, but I
Yeah,
guess he was saying that like Stoics believed determinism, right? Like they believe like everything is set in stone, like your
yeah,
actions are the consequences of other actions, and
yeah.
therefore like. But I
They
do think
believed
there.
in the logos, the logic of the universe, and that logic of the universe can be like simplified into like cause and effect. Like everything has a purpose, and the purpose of everything around you and everything that you're supposed to do is the way that it is.
But they, but
And
but it's interesting because they found a meshing of that, and it seems like free will, right? Because their entire stance is like you control your approach to the, like you are still an entity
yeah,
outside of your environment, and you
like
control
like
your actions and reactions to things.
yeah, the biggest sin, and I don't know if that's like the appropriate word for like Stoics, was not like living up to your potential. You were put on this earth, however the Stoics believed, you were put on this earth to fulfill tasks, and whatever those tasks are, whether it be to be like a parent or a worker or a family member or a brother, you have these titles, and it is your duty to fulfill the best that you can, like the roles of those titles. Like everything has a purpose and everything has a role.
Yeah, I think that's, I need to look into that more, and I guess just
Yeah,
Christianity and also, but like I think Stoicism might be my path to understanding like how I can mesh that determinism with the free will aspect of it, because like
yeah,
I like you said, like you said when you said you believe in free will because you want to. Like
Yeah.
I would like to believe like my brain believes in determinism, but my heart like
Yeah.
says free will. You know, like
Yeah.
it's like something about me as a human. I'm like, well, I don't think I don't think that I have any influence on how I was born and how I was raised and things like that. But also
Yeah.
like I I don't want to believe in free will because I think, oh, I want to be able to control my actions, but because I want to be able to believe like
Like
humans aren't destined to commit crimes and humans aren't destined to be
be
bad
bad
people.
people. Yeah. 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 Um, like outside of like what we're talking about, free will also just kind of feels good because it gives you hope. It gives you hope for better, whether that be for like your current situation or like hope for better in yourself. And I feel like humanity that has hope or a person that has hope is a better person. Hot take. I think people that have something that they believe in and something that they hope for and something that they strive for are generally better people.
I mean, that's been I think that's like even atheists or agnostics or whatever like
Mhm.
well I've said like I think generally I mean there's obviously the stances of like religion has caused some wars and like some like holy war
Yeah,
but like
it's religion itself is good. The people that interpret religion and use religion as a weapon is it's a bad thing, and that's not it. Kind of counter. It's counter to what the teachings of the Bible and the teachings of
mhm.
Jesus actually are.
Yeah, but I think that I think
And
every
that's one of the biggest evils and my biggest complaints with like a lot of modern religions, where it's just like they'll twist the Bible or they'll twist the original teachings in ways that like benefit them but hurt more people.
yeah I think that I heard a stance from it was Rhett the GMM guy and like he was
Mhm,
he's like now I want to say like agnostic or like maybe slightly atheist or something but
mhm,
like
mhm,
he was like yeah I still he was like yeah I still believe in like the historical like I believe that Jesus was real and I believe that he said these things and the things he said were like ahead of their time and good for humanity right like
mhm,
even if he specifically doesn't believe in like the resurrection he's like yeah these are still good things and like he was like yeah I still want even as like a agnostic atheist he was like I still want to defend his name and his teachings from like people
mhm.
who are weaponizing it for um their own purposes, right? And I do
Yeah.
think yeah, and I think that every most rational people I think can agree that like religion is a good thing for humanity, right? Whether or not you
Mhm,
believe in it or whether or not you subscribe to a certain belief, like I
mhm,
think that like you said, having hope and having that intrinsic belief in a higher power, which by the way, I do think I know I sound like someone who doesn't believe in these things from my questions, but like
mhm.
I was saying to Dave and them, I was like, even from a logical side, I'm like, I don't see a logical argument against a higher power. Right? Like it's one thing to say like, oh, like which one you believe in, which, but like
Mhm,
as just the sheer improbability of life
mhm.
and like how we've survived and like just civilization, like I do believe in a higher power, like for sure. Right? I think that
Yeah.
like that's my logical, just like
To some degree, you almost like have to. It's like, how did we get here? How do the functions of the universe work?
yeah,
How
like
do why do we have the ability to sit down and have these conversations outside of the technology, but just like have the thoughts in our brain to be able to communicate at a level like this?
yeah, like even from a logical side, there has to be some reason. There has to be
And
some
even
higher reason.
yeah, a higher power in whatever field. Like I feel like that's just like a no duh moment. Even if we're just sitting in a simulation of somebody else, we're in a simulation that somebody else made.
Yeah, and that whoever that made is the higher power, like
Yeah,
for us.
yeah. From whatever viewpoint that you want to take, like it feels silly not to believe in some sort of thing greater than humanity.
Yeah, because like I will say like while there are some compelling beliefs on the other side, like I think that the big one is like people will point out contradictions or they'll say like the improbability of this happening in the Bible and things like that. I'm like, yeah, but like think about the level of improbability for what we are. Like
Yeah.
that is such a like that is monkeys writing Shakespeare for
Yeah.
us, right? So
Yeah.
like yeah, I think at the end of the day, I'm still definitely I'm still just working through a lot of these questions, and I think that's
Yeah.
why I'm glad I've like matured to like contrary to 5 years ago, I'm at a point where I'm asking questions rather than telling people
Yeah.
things.
Because you don't know enough, and I don't know enough. Nobody knows enough. I feel like the day that you stop asking questions and that the day that you're like less inquisitive about the world is the day that you die, like
Yeah,
internally die. The like you stop growing. Like the entire point of living is to continue to grow physically, mentally, spiritually.
yeah. That is also why like I don't know. I do stray away from. It's hard for me to buy into any, not just religious belief, but like any belief, right? Like whether it be political
Mhm.
or philosophical or whatever. Because like someone will have a belief, and I'm like, how it was. I'm gonna go again to that podcast that Red did, and it's like
Mhm.
he was saying when he was really into the belief that he was like, wow, how lucky am I to like out of all the Christian denominations to believe the exact right thing, right? Like
Mhm.
that's kind of the thing about anyone who believes anything, like or doesn't question it, and is like, yeah, it's
Mhm.
just because I believe the right thing. Like how improbable is it that out of 8 billion people, you are the one person that like knows and believes the exact right thing, right? But
Yeah,
like
you don't.
we yeah,
You,
but
you
like
don't
we
know
just have
that,
such a
and
bias.
that's where like the aspect of like faith comes in, and like the identity of like subscribing to the correct church is an interesting one. Like me as a person, I've never like thought that like, oh yeah, I go to this church, I must be a Presbyterian Christian. I've never thought about it that way, and like even among the different sects of like Protestants and Catholicism and Orthodox, generally we believe all like Christians in general believe all of the same thing. Like they believe that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior and God is the creator of the universe at the very least. That everybody believes that, and I feel like if you have those two things down, um, you're probably you're going to be agreeing a lot more than you are disagreeing with the people of different sects and like even of the Abrahamic religion. So that's Christianity as a whole. That's Islam. That's uh, Judaism. Couldn't speak.
There you go.
But yeah, there we go. They all come from roughly the same teachings, but then some sects add different books, or they add different theories, or they add different belief systems, or they emphasize certain historical characters over others. But they're all stemming from the same root, roughly.
Yeah, like that's why like I can see the merits of like, oh, this, I think I have some things right, and I think
Mhm.
that, at the end of the day, like what I have right is the most important stuff. But
Mhm.
where some people lose me is when they're like in the details. They're like, it must be this. Or like, you'll have even among Christians, they'll be like, oh, like I believe in the young Earth creationism, or like I believe evolution was the way. Like so so when people are so staunchly like in those beliefs, that's when like I start to get. I mean, same with politics when they believe that one thing is right, one thing's wrong. Like how how incredibly improbable is it that you landed on every single point of
Yeah.
this theory? Because they're all
Yeah.
theories. Every single thing is a theory
Yeah.
at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. And that's why I personally subscribe to your personal relationship with whatever higher power that you believe in. Specifically, it's me with God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Um, and it's just your own personal spiritual journey, and then you take that however you want to. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna rag on somebody because we have a couple disagreements. I'll sit there and listen and learn and have a conversation, and then we can move on. Kind of like what we're doing now. You take the information that you've gathered, and then you continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's a product of social media and visibility and things, but everyone these days wants to be on a X destroys Y. X
Yeah,
brutally destroys Y in debate. Like everyone wants to be in one
yeah,
of those, like, and it is it is really obnoxious to me. Like just straight up, it's just super obnoxious. Like even though I was one of those 5 years ago, um,
yeah.
but like that's the approach now. You know, like it's not. I think a lot of people, like so few people, I think sit with not so few people. I don't want to say that. I think a lot of those outspoken people, um, they don't take the time to sit down with something, digest it, think for themselves, think about what they feel about it, and like what their stance is. All
Hmm.
they're looking for when they look for information is not for their own development. It's so they could bring it to the next debate, so they could rub it in the faces of those like who believe the other thing, and like it's just such such a disingenuous way to interact with other people. Like
Hmm.
and I mean I've said it before about like which side I landed on politically. It was literally just because of people's approach. But it was like
Hmm.
because I felt one side, both sides did it, but I was like one side feels like they're being more argumentative and that they hate me more than this side. So I'm gonna hop on this
Hmm.
side. So like I think
Yeah.
that it does lead to I will say I think a lot of people's beliefs is not from a religious standpoint, just like a lot of people's internally held morals, beliefs, and everything. I want to say it's almost more like from my standpoint. I'll say my standpoint is it's less of the draw of one side. It's more of the other side pushing you away. I want to say like that. Like it seems like these days that's what it is more. Um,
Yeah.
it's like you see one side, you're like, that's gross. I don't like that, and I'm just
Yeah.
gonna explore the other side. Which I wish it wasn't like that. I wish it was more actually people choosing the side that they want to be on and believe in.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
what can I say? We're moderates, so we don't really choose a side anyways.
No, no, no. We're liberal now, Dave. We've discovered this.
We're liberals now. Spoiler for anyone who hasn't watched their political compass.
Yeah.
Luke and I are
No,
raging lefties.
Dave more than me, surprisingly. No, yeah, I mean it's but like it's unfortunate, but it's true. You don't want to be surrounded by people that hate you, even if you believe in the same thing. Like I feel like that's a very known thing. I mean, you see that all the time with like sports players. Like you have people that like just hate being on the same team or hate like the team dynamic and will like willingly move to different teams. But you see the other way too. Like you're on a winning team and you're willing to get past the BS
Hmm,
to be a part of the winning team. I don't know.
yeah. But what do we know?
What do we know?
Nothing.
We're just two monkeys floating in the universe.
Just trying to
Just
write
let us be.
Shakespeare.
Just let us. Yeah. Just give us time on our typewriters. We'll figure something out.
Once we're done pooping on them.
That's what the
All right.
first 25 years of life is. It's just pooping on your typewriter.
That's a good quote. I'm gonna turn that into a t-shirt. All right. You got anything else to discuss?
No, no, that's it. That's my closing line. I'm done.
I like that. That's a good way to end it. I'm not gonna add anything else. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening. This is Illogically Ignorant. We're out.